Hello everyone, it's Monday, July 8th, and you're looking at a live view of our Falcon 9 rocket awaiting its 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Cape Canaveral Space Launch Complex 40 in Florida. Today's launch marks SpaceX's 69th mission of 2024 and the 364th overall mission to date. My name is Zachary Lupin, and I'm an avionics reliability engineer here at SpaceX, and I'm joining you from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Welcome to our live launch coverage of the Turksat 6A mission, a geostationary Earth orbit, or GEO, communication satellite for the Republic of Turkey. It's the country's first fully domestic communication satellite and will extend coverage to regions such in India, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. With Turksat 6A, the population reached by Turkey satellites will expand from 3.5 billion people to 5 billion. We'll have more to share about today's payload later on in the webcast. Currently, both the vehicle and range are green, and we're on track for an on-time launch. Weather was a bit of a watch item for us today, but things are now looking good for liftoff in about 9 minutes from now. For now, let's meet the vehicle and learn a little bit more about the most flown U.S. launch vehicle ever, our Falcon 9 rocket. Falcon 9 is a two-stage rocket developed and manufactured by SpaceX, known for its safe, reliable, and cost-effective access to space. It's also the first and currently the only orbital-class rocket capable of reflight. Starting at the top of the vehicle is the payload fairing, a protective shell that encases the payload being sent to space. Made of a carbon composite material and having a 17-foot diameter, the space within the payload fairing is able to comfortably contain your average-sized fire truck. Now, that fairing made up of two halves will separate and jettison away from the vehicle, exposing the payload once Falcon 9 reaches space. And today's payload, currently encapsulated within those payload fairings, is the Turksat 6A communication satellite. Continuing down the vehicle, we have the second stage. The second stage is powered by a single Merlin vacuum engine, or MVAC engine, which is optimized to perform in the vacuum of space. After stage separation, the MVAC will ignite and carry the payload to its final orbit. The Falcon 9's first and second stages are connected via the black inner stage, which houses the MVAC engine and the system that decouples the two stages during stage separation. And below that is the first stage, which is powered by 9 Merlin engines. These 9 Merlin engines provide the initial thrust to lift Falcon 9 off the ground through the lower, thicker part of the atmosphere. There are 8 engines arranged around one center engine and are collectively held in place by a structure called the octaweb. Each of these Merlin 1D engines delivers about 190,000 pounds of thrust at sea level, which gives Falcon 9 a combined 1.7 million pounds of thrust. After stage separation, stage 1, also called the booster, will return to Earth for recovery and reuse on a future mission using a combination of the Merlin sea level engines and the 4 titanium grid fins located near the top of the booster, which will guide it during its re-entry and landing. The Falcon 9 first stage is also equipped with 4 landing legs that will deploy just before landing to allow for vertical touchdown on a drone ship or a landing pad. For today's mission, we'll be attempting to land this booster on our drone ship Just Read the Instructions, which is currently stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. And this mission will mark this booster's 15th launch and landing. Both the weather and vehicle continue to look good for today's launch out of Florida. Now, to learn more about today's Turksat 6A payload on the pad, let's take a look at this video about the satellite and its mission.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And there's that call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. We're now waiting for the final go from the launch director for today's mission.
Go for launch.
And there's that final go for launch from our launch director. At T-minus 40 seconds and counting, all systems are go for the launch of Falcon 9. So let's sit back and watch as Falcon takes the Turksat 6A mission to space.
T-minus 30 seconds. Seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff. Go SpaceX, go Turksat. Vehicle pushing downrange. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
At T plus 30 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Slick 40 carrying the Turksat 6A satellite. Now, after clearing the tower, we'll tilt or gimbal the engines on the booster to initiate a roll maneuver, which you may notice in the stage 1 camera view. This enables the vehicle's antennas to stay in the best position for communicating with the ground. And in just a few seconds, we'll be throttling down the engines in preparation for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure. We should hear that call out in about 15 seconds from now.
Vehicle is supersonic.
Este lunes 8 de julio a las 7:30 de la tarde SpaceX lanzó la misión Turksat 6 a la órbita de transferencia geoestacionaria desde el Complejo de Lanzamiento Espacial 40, SLC 40, En la estación de la Fuerza Espacial de Cabo Cañaveral en Florida. Este fue el noveno vuelo del cohete de primera etapa que apoya esta misión, que anteriormente lanzó CRS-26, OneWeb Launch 16, Intelsat IS-40e, O3B mPOWER, Ovzon 3, Eutelsat 36 y 8 misiones Starlink.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Hello and welcome back to our live launch coverage of the Turksat 6A mission. We're back from our first coast phase just in time for second engine start 2, or SES2. In just a few moments, we'll have a roughly 1 minute burn of the second stage MVAC engine, which is shown there on your screen.
MVAC ignition.
And there's that confirmation of SES2 startup. This is the second burn of the MVAC engine on the second stage. The first burn took place around the T plus 2.5 minute mark and lasted about 5.5 minutes. This additional burn will place the Turksat 6A payload into the desired orbit for payload deployment. And as I mentioned earlier, the MVAC engine shown on your screen right now has a much wider nozzle than the sea-level M1D engines in order to have optimal thrust in vacuum. At full power, it's capable of 220,500 pounds of thrust in vacuum. We're expecting this burn to last about 15 more seconds.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And there we have confirmation of nominal orbital insertion. We now have a roughly 7-minute coast before arriving at payload deployment. So we'll see you back here at about the T plus 33 minute mark.